Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 30th day rather of November 2020, last day of the month. So this is take two. I got almost done and it froze, so I rebooted, so it should be fine. Anyway, I've got the cards, I've got the runes. I'm just going to go with it. I don't know. It just makes sense to do that, I think. Um, So let's see. Let's go ahead and talk about. Well, let me just check in with the stuff I've already posted. The bind rune. We talked about that yesterday for the week on esoteric influences. I showed that. I'll show it to you today. It's comprised of Iwas, Ingus, Yira, and Kenaz. And so I'm talking about it in terms of healing, and not just physical healing, but spiritual healing and emotional healing and relationship healing as well. Because I think that that's what's going on. It's not just the virus; it's healing perceptions. I may do a thing on shifting perceptions. That's my latest book, and I really think that how we see things in terms of who we are and who we are together and what the broader picture actually is important. And I think that how we have to have a way of moving out of seeing ourselves as simply individuals on an individual path and understand that that's not really true. That everything we see is the other side of self. So what our projection of our own existence here overlaps with everybody else's, and from that then you have all kinds of potential for learning and experiences and all of that, right? But it's collective, and everything is the other side of self. And so if you look at that, you think about it then in terms of this circle. And so everything is it's part of you. So if things aren't going right, well, what's that teaching you? What is the message here? What are you supposed to be learning out of this? And how do we see it all in unison instead of us versus them? Because it's a very different feeling when you see somebody as the other or as the other side of self. Two different things, right? And if we could just start doing that, seeing everyone as the other side of self, then it might not be, we might think a little more responsibly about how we interact with one another. But anyway, I might do that. I don't know. And if I do, I'll do it in video and just like maybe do one or two videos on it or something and talk about that, just to get people thinking along those lines, just to consider it, and see how it, give it time to gel, see how it resonates for you. But anyway, the Elder Futhark rune for today was Lagos, 21st rune of the Elder Futhark. And we're talking flow from spirit. It can be useful if you're empathic when you're drawing energies, when you're aligning within and dissolving the channels you've created with other people or other people have tried to create with you. Just by turning your attention to it creates a channel. So, you can dissolve them. It's also called cutting cords. To me, that just sounds harsh. So I just like seeing them dissolve. But anyway, you can then use Laguz. You can chant Laguz as a magical hook to bring your energies back to you after you've done the dissolving or cutting, however you want to see it. So we've got the flow of spirit basically there. Versus a little ego here with Puella. Now, Puella represents the young girl. Its opposite or complement is Puer. But the difference here is that instead of a bunch of impulse control with Puer, you've got, with Puella, you've got, or Puea, however you want to say it. What you have here is little girl energy, little boy energy, little girl energy. Now, the little girl energy is considered more fortunate than the little boy energy. But it's one of those fortunate but not too fortunate. But basically how I see the Puella energy is just scattered, interested in everything. Your focus is not real, on one thing. You're just really interested in all kinds of things. And so the energy is kind of flighty and scattered. And again, as I said in the first video, it reminds me of my granddaughter, whose energy is just high and wanting to know everything and be everything and do everything all at once. And so I was like that. And so basically, that's kind of what you're looking at. You're looking at scattered energy versus flow today in the runes. But then the cards define it a little more specifically, because we're looking at both the Five of Swords and the Page of Swords. And then the third card is the Devil, and we're going to put the Devil in the center. And let's go ahead and talk about the Devil first. The 15th card of the Major Arcana, it's a 6th energy, so we're talking harmony. But here, it's harmony between spirit and form, and here, way too much emphasis on form, or the ego. And here we're a slave to desire. We see the two figures below, both nude. One is female, one is male. You see the female with the pomegranate tail and the oak leaf on the male. And what this is the masculine and feminine polarity within, or the projective and receptive presence within. We see our devil figure, our winged devil figure with the goat head and the horns, kind of reminiscent of it has some Mars energy to it, some Aries energy to it, if you will. You see the inverted pentagram on his head, and it does not mean Satanism. It just doesn't. What it means is when the pentagram is inverted, it means that when the point is pointing downward, in other words, it's talking about form and ego. And when you have it the opposite way, when it's normal, then you're talking about spirit, all right? You're talking about the four elements plus spirit. Well, here, it's the four elements plus ego, all right? It really just depends on your focus. But here it's about he's perched on that post, and the man and the woman are chained to the post. Basically, it's slave to desire, slave to the ego. You see the as above stance with his arms, the positioning there. He has the torch, though, the light of the ego, basically. Pointing downward, lighting his own attitude versus spirit. But the goal here, when we're in form, is to transmute all that into spirit, all the ego into spirit. It's not about working your way back to God over the course of your lifetime. It's about doing it now. It's not, you are who you are now. You have the light of source presence, the light of the Creator within you. You have that little portion. When the Creator expresses out the world, well, we're little pieces of that. And so it's not a question of working your way back to something you already are. It's about making the realization in form that you need to be, you need to have spirit, you need to have who you truly are, inform your experience here, instead of just reacting to everything and feeling like you're out of control, like you have no control over anything. You have ultimate control over everything because you control your perception of it. You might not be able to control the circumstances themselves, at least maybe not right away, but you can at least control your perception of it. You control your fear, your whatever, Even in the scariest moments, you can choose to feel something else. You can choose, even if it's just to choose to remain neutral. That's another choice you can make. And simply be the observer, right, within your own life. But then fast forward to the Five of Swords. Swords is the air element. It's about reason. It's about justice. It's the intellect, balance, communication. Here, communication has gone awry. We see the sketchy brown clouds up top there in the sky, almost looking like lightning bolts. So the words were harsh. And this guy in the right here has in the foreground, he's looking really, really pleased with himself as he's gathering up the swords. The swords of the other two guys are on the ground. You've got one over by the water. You see the line of demarcation between emotions and the outcome, basically. We'll look at that as the outcome. So the sea is still choppy there, not too choppy, but things are starting to settle. Grief is setting in here. And this guy's concerned about his friend. We'll call him his friend. We actually don't know that. But this guy's gathering up the spoils of the argument, the spoils of the fight, the spoils of the interaction. And he's won because he's deceived them. Now, what he's won, again, is likely more devil-oriented and ego-oriented, so he's feeling pretty good about himself. But the damage has been done, you see. Some change has taken place, and the damage has been done. And the other two can't even see that their swords are on the ground. They can't even pick them up. Maybe because they belong to him now. Because they've given up, right? They've given that up. They've given up control over their own ability to interact. And they've become basically a slave to the circumstance, just as becoming a slave to desire. But then you have the Page of Swords. Now, the Page of Swords can be a risk taker. They can be, petty when they're ill-dignified. They can be, likely the source of this. But in this case, I don't think so. We see this, the brown clouds are starting to get billowy, aren't they? And the brownness is disappearing, and you can see the whiteness coming from the center, emerging from the darkness, if you will. Truth is emerging from the darkness in that regard. The birds are returning. Another symbol of messages. Here, the Page of Swords is really bringing a new message. And although, let's see if I get this right. Nope. Put it this way so you can see the directionality of this. You can see the page looking back on what's happened here. The ground still seems to be moving under his feet, so things aren't completely clear yet, but he's leaning into it, isn't he? It's almost like you can see his hair is being blown toward the future. I have to do things backwards here. I'm like a weather girl. Anyway, you can see the wind is blowing him toward the future, dissipating the sketchy brown clouds there, the lightning bolt type clouds, where lots of catalytic things happen, lots of things, lots of deception. But now it's blowing its way into truth. With the sword pointed upwards to spirit. I think that what the message of the reading is that we need to allow spirit to flow into our perceptions. And I think that we need to keep ego out of it, even if it means taking a step back and being just the observer to let things settle out. We've got, let's see, there's a 6 energy for the devil, a 5 there, so 6 and 5 is 11. We're not going to reduce that. Is that right? Yeah, 6 and 5 is 11. And there's no number associated with the page. If there were, it would also be an 11. So if you were to continue counting, from the minor arcana, the page would be an 11. So in a sense, if you want to combine them together, we've got a 22 for soul manifestation, which is reflective of the year. The 2020 is a 22 energy. Now next year, 2021 will be a 5 energy. And so, we're going to be manifesting again whatever profound changes or realizations we've made this year. I think that what I find fascinating is that in spite of the election being over, in spite of the outcome being clear, the guy in the Oval Office doesn't want to go for his own reasons, likely having to do with, whatever lawsuits or prosecutions are waiting for him when he leaves. But he lied throughout the whole virus. He has lied throughout the whole thing. He's lying about the election, all while sending his supporters emails and texts asking for more money. So I hope that the truth around that is clear at some point for people so that they don't give him anymore. He wants to, rumor has it, go ahead and run again in 2024. Well, that's assuming he's not in court or in prison or whatever. Depending on what happens here after he's gone. There could be all kinds of things that could happen to him. So I think the 2024 thing is just another scam to bring more money in, to keep the money flowing. Because he's making pretty good coin off of this. And I think that there will be a reckoning for those lawyers that have helped him solicit funds. Someone said the other day that it's no different than the Nigerian prince email scams that we see, where the Nigerian prince emails you and needs your money and all that. Yeah. It's the same thing. The election's over, and you cannot stay in campaign mode and continue to bring in money. It's because you, at some point, people that are giving it to him, again, this is him and this is the supporters giving him the money. He's tickled pink over it, but it's really an expression of the devil within, the ego within, wanting things he shouldn't be able to have. So hopefully you'll start to see some legislation come about that deals with candidates in the candidate mode and allows them to only take money at a certain time and not all 4 years long. In other words, it cannot be a continual bilking process of supporters, and that's what this is. But, those people that understood who this man was and never voted for him to begin with, this doesn't surprise any of us at all. Not at all. Okay? Not at all. But as we lean into the future, the message has to be different, and we have to deal with one another in truth. Whether it's surrounding the virus, whether it's surrounding, the politics of the country. When you give yourself over to a con man, you're not a supporter, you're a mark. All right? They see you coming, they target you, they speak your language, they make it seem like they're on your side, but the only reason they're doing it is to get your money. That's the only reason they're doing it. This has been a grift that has played out in so many ways with so many people, whether it's the preachers that are living in mansions and driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris and things like that while they're passing the plate on Sunday. Something's wrong with that. That's not, I don't know how that embodies Jesus in your life. I don't know how that happens. I just don't understand that. But yet that's what you see. It's that kind of stuff. Or the ones that promise this and that, but it's just a scam, just to take your money. They never deliver. This is just more of that same type of energetic thing, and it's all based on some kind of deception that they laugh all the way to the bank when it works, leaving the other people here bereft. You could look at this in terms of the virus and what was said about it. Oh, it's a hoax. It's this. It's not airborne. It's not this. Oh, it's not going to hurt you. Oh, send your kids back to school. Can you imagine the depraved indifference of an individual who will tell you to do that, knowing full well that it could kill them? Do it anyway. Keep the economy rolling. There'd be nobody to work, so I don't know how you can keep the economy rolling. You do that by hunkering down and paying everybody to stay home so that nobody loses. So when we can come out, everybody can just then go back to work, right? Had we done that, things would be very different today. Instead, we've lost, 270,000 people at least? Because we don't even know for sure, right? Because you've got some states that simply will not give an accurate count. It's like, let's put our head in the sand. But it's by design, so that the game goes on, you see, so that the grift goes on. It's the problem here that I think when we choose to deceive people, then the people have to figure out, okay, am I being deceived? Oh, well, but if it speaks to their needs, to their desires, to their grievances, well, they don't see it. They think it's somebody speaking their language, finally understands what they're talking about, whether it's realistic or not, because you had a mixture of both. And now, see, we have to decide, how are we going to do this going forward? Are we going to invoke spirit, or are we going to consistently invoke the devil within, the ego within? Because if we do that, we're not going to get out of this morass that we're in, collectively or individually, because it's not just something that is happening external from us. This is affecting people's lives, whether you're talking about the virus or you're talking about families and friendships and all of that have been devastated by this con man. Because I blame him. I don't blame other people who believed him. I don't really even believe them, because again, there was a con at work. There was a game afoot to manipulate people into supporting him so he can stay there. And when we find out what he's done, after Biden's inaugurated, when that process starts, because it will, there will be people who will investigate in the Department of Justice. They will. You can't avoid it. There are crimes that have been committed. They're going to have to. And when we start to see just exactly what it all was, when we understand what the Mueller report all was, when we understand that yes, crimes were committed, and when we all begin to accept that, then maybe we can move forward. But until there's a shift in perception, I don't know, at least for some of us, I don't know how we do that. So it just means the rest of us move forward and we wait for everyone to catch up. Well, that's not fun. We need everybody now, right? To wake up now. One would have hoped people dying, in the masses that have been dying, you would think that would, or with the long-term health concerns, you would think the immediacy of the cause and effect of believing this man would be present, would be known. But for some reason, it's not, because the focus is too much on this guy. And we got to let that go. Because otherwise, all we're going to have is this. All right? A lot of deception, a lot of war of words, with truth never finding the light. So you got to get above it, like the Page of Swords. He's kind of like above on a little bit higher rised peak there than the ground, than the actual land. At least that's the impression I get here. And as the clouds are becoming more billowy, and the whiteness is returning to them, the clarity, in other words. The wind of spirit is blowing toward truth. He's being mindful and cautious, though, isn't he? Even though the Page of Swords is known as a risk taker. And maybe that's really what he's doing. In spite of what's going on, maybe he's leaning and taking that risk to lean into the future and to know the truth of the matter, and to be willing to speak truth to power in the process. Maybe that's the message of the reading, is to not be afraid to speak truth to power. Even in the face of harm. Or in the face of people, deriding you for it. At some point, that's the voice that needs to be heard. And as we do that, I think maybe we can get on a shared path together. But I don't think it's really about dropping resistance at this point to do that. I think it's about standing firm on the peak, leaning into the truth. watching for the deception to crop up behind us, but leaning into that truth and having the courage and the ability to do that. So, I don't know. I think it's about controlling the ego within and understanding that, we have to allow the voice of spirit to guide us, to let that higher level of harmony move us in the right direction. And, here's the thing about, I've talked about this before, about transmuting ego. You don't go to ego to do that. You remain in a higher vibration of spirit. And when you do that, you see, then ego might be tapping you on the shoulder and say, hey, me, remember me? Look at me, right? But you don't give it any attention. When I was in college, I got a degree in psychology. I got a Bachelor of Arts, and when we were talking about behavior modification in one class, we were talking about something called operant conditioning. Now, you can, in terms of dealing with children, you can punish them for, their behavior, which is immediate stimulus response, or you can stand back and you can simply reward the positive behavior and ignore the negative. Well, when, sometimes you just can't do that because sometimes the negative behavior is harmful. Maybe the child's going to get hurt, so you may have to intervene. But if you can reward only the good behavior, what you have is behavior change that is more long lasting than simply going back and punishing, and setting boundaries every single time. The child never makes the decision within that, okay, if I want mom and dad's attention, I'm going to have to behave myself. I'm going to have to go see what they're doing, go do what they want me to do, right? Well, in this case, the only thing that we have here is truth and deception, right? And the deception has been so it's been so reinforced by someone who needs it to be there, right? So the choice to then go to the other, go to the light, it's an easy one, really, it is. And you'll find, you can even put it down to service to self versus service to others, right? Right now we've got a guy in the Oval Office that's about service to self. Hopefully this next one's going to be about service to others, and that's what it seems like. You want to talk about good and evil, you can talk about it that way, however you need to see it. But the idea is when you transmute ego into spirit, you give ego no attention. And obviously, like with children, you better make sure that people are safe. But other than that, you need to get on board here. The train's going to the future now, right? The road's going toward the future, toward an alignment together, a shared path forward. Otherwise, how do we survive if we can't get all of us on the same page about the virus? Just about that and that alone. Leave the rest of it for another day. Let's just talk about the virus. Let's get on the same page there. Go in the same direction of safety. Make those 270,000 plus, 270,000 plus people, whatever the actual number is that have died, honor those people. Honor their lives. Honor what happened to them. And get on the shared path forward. And I guarantee you, if we can just do that, it can shift perceptions in all kinds of ways, right? If we are able to think about someone else's safety and security and health and wellness and well-being, not just our own. Just having that experience to do that, it's self-reinforcing for the next time. So you see, then you head in a different direction, don't you? Away from the con man, away from the lies, away from the deception, and into truth. And into a direction where we can all be successful. So anyway, that's it for a Monday. We'll see you again on Thursday when we'll be in December. And tonight, in the middle of the night, 129, we had the moon at 8 degrees Gemini had an eclipse. It was a penumbral one, I guess, not a full. And then at 1:30 it went full in Gemini. The full beaver moon is one word for it. So get out tonight if you can, and draw down the moon's blessings, and then maybe tomorrow work a little crone magic in the dark in the third day of the full moon. The triple aspect. Yesterday was maiden, tonight's mother, tomorrow is crone. And set your just kind of bring whatever you set your intention on at the new moon to fulfillment, and then maybe start planning for the future here and the future path we need to all be on. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and do check out the blog over at imsteppingaside.com, and click subscribe here if you have not done so. I would love you to do that. There's a newsletter sign up on the left side panel over there at the blog as well. You can get the esoteric influences in your inbox on Sundays if you want. Otherwise, they're everywhere. You can see them. You don't have to do that to get that, but if you want to, that'd be cool. I'm going to start putting other things in there, I think, at some point, but right now I'm just doing that. I was going to do like a magical quote from someone in the magical community, and I forgot to do that this time. I have a whole bunch of them. I copied and pasted. I found a whole bunch, and I was going to put one from Margot Adler. Let's see, where is it? The one I was going to do. Oh, Dorothy Morrison from Everyday Magic. Magic is not a practice. It's a living, breathing web of energy that, with our permission, can encase our every action. Let's see. Lori Cabot, the witch knows nothing in this world is supernatural. It's all natural. Well, I don't know what happened to that other one. I have to go back and find it. Oh, there it is. The first time I called myself a witch was the most magical moment of my life. That's Margot Adler from Drawing Down the Moon. So if you haven't read that book and you're of the magical persuasion, I highly recommend it. So anyway, thanks a lot again, you guys. And we'll talk again on Thursday. Be good to yourself. Be good to one another. Wear a mask if you go out and around anyone at all. And if you don't have to go out, don't. And blessed be.